Hello, I'm Rebecca, and welcome to my collaborative video with Jen at Jen's Reading Life, where we discuss our Cozy Reader Book Club. Grab something warm to drink and join us as we talk about our vision of how the Cozy Reader Book Club runs, and also to share our plans for the remainder of 2024.
Hi everyone, I'm Jen from at Jen's Reading Life.
And I'm Rebecca from Rebecca of Wilson Hill.
And we're here today to chat a little bit about the Cozy Reader Book Club. Rebecca and I met, we think through Instagram, we think that's how we met, and we had the opportunity to co-lead a book club together when we discovered that there was some interest in doing that, in reading cozy books together, and that was sort of how the club started.
So what we wanted to do in this video is share a little bit about ourselves and kind of how we would define cozy, and then to also share a bit about the book club and where we are with that in this year. And so through the process of figuring out kind of what we would determine as cozy, what we really try to do in this book club is to do our best to mitigate any triggers that people might find in reading, anything that they might find upsetting. And of course, we can't, know what everyone is triggered by and possibly upset by, but we do try really hard to make our book selections cozy. And so one of the things we wanted to share is, as far as we define cozy, is to share what books we would kind of call as cozy. So Jen, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, or we can just go into sharing our cozy books.
No, I think that's a perfect description of it. And yes, I think hopefully people can get a good idea of what we both define as cozy by the types of cozy books we have picked to share today.
So what we'll do here is I'm going to go ahead and interview Jen and have her share about her cozy books, and that will be on my channel. And then we'll get to the place where Jen's going to be asking me about my cozy books, and that part of the video will be on her channel. And so you'll want to be sure to go to both of our channels to get a full picture of kind of how each of us defines cozy when it comes to reading.
Yes.
So
And the links to our channels will be in the description box of each video.
Yes. And we'll also be sure that we're also sharing about this on Instagram. So if you ever have questions or can't find it, you can always send either of us a message at either of those places. Mm-hmm. So Jen, I'll go ahead and start with you. So for your book choices, I think we'll start with the memoir category. Mm-hmm. So if you want to share a little bit about a book that you would choose in the memoir category that you would define as something that's cozy.
Absolutely. The book that I picked is by one of my very, very favorite authors. And for those people who have watched my channel before, this is going to be no surprise to you. And that is Home Cooking by Laurie Colwin. And Laurie Colwin, she wrote two food memoirs, Home Cooking and More Home Cooking. She also wrote a number of novels and books of short stories. And in Home Cooking, she shares her sort of memoirs of cooking in New York in a very, very tiny apartment when she first starts out, and just kind of in a really lovely and sweet way. I think this was one of the very first sort of foodie memoirs that was out there. And she has a way of making food, even if I don't want to necessarily cook it or make it, she makes it so appetizing. And what she does with so very little is just wonderful. This is the best kind of book to curl up with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and get yourself something to eat, because it's probably going to make you very hungry. But she is such a wonderful, evocative writer, and she is just incredibly descriptive in her food writings. And she She wrote for, I think this was collected in, I want to say Gourmet Magazine, some of her essays that are in home cooking back in the like 1970s. So
Great. Great. Thanks for sharing. It makes me, I have not read any of her works, and it makes me want to see if I can get a copy
you should.
to read it.
Absolutely. She's still in print. Her books are still well loved, and especially home cooking and more home cooking are pretty easy to find.
Great. Great. Okay, so next, the cozy mystery is a whole genre and has spun off all kinds of different series and writers and books. And so, my question to you would be, what cozy mystery series would you really say is like right at the heart of how you would define coziness?
So for me, I'm not a huge fan of the like real super kind of sweet, cozy mystery where somebody owns a bakery and then they solve a mystery and that, like that's just a little bit too sweet for my taste. I want something with a little bit more meat to it. I love Agatha Christie, and I feel like she is just what I call cozy adjacent in the cozy mystery genre, as you would call it. And so I look for things that are similar to that. And this mystery series, I think, is exactly my cozy sweet spot, and that is the Lady Hardcastle Mysteries by T.E. Kinsey. And this is the very first one in the series, A Quiet Life in the Country. And in these books, we follow Lady Hardcastle and her lady's maid Florence, or Flo, as we come to call her and love her. And this is set in the early 20th century, so like the 19 teens, somewhere around there. It's before World War One, and set in England. And Lady Hardcastle and Florence have, in this novel, just returned to England. They have been in the East, like in China and all sort of around the East. They've been to like in Shanghai and all kinds of different places. Anyway, they have recently returned. Lady Hardcastle's husband has died, though it's been kind of a while. But he was sort of involved in I want to say like government or kind of spy related sort of pre MI6 type of things. And so Lady Hardcastle and Flo also get involved in these things. And they've been doing it for a long time. Flo comes from a circus family, which is really fun. Anyway, they move to this small town, and of course they get embroiled in mysteries. And the town they live in might be a little bit like Miss Marple's, oh gosh, Miss St. Mary Mead, because a lot of stuff happens in this small town. But they also leave the town, and others of the books are set elsewhere. But such a good cozy mystery. Nothing graphic happens in these. Nothing is, off-putting in that way. It all happens off the page. If somebody dies, there's nothing other than, they were shot or they were hit in the head or whatever it might be. They were poisoned. And the relationship between Lady Hardcastle and Flo is so wonderful, so endearing. And these books on audio, I cannot recommend enough. They're read by Elizabeth Nolden, and she is fantastic. I'm currently listening to the most recent book that was just released a couple of weeks ago, and I'm loving it. I cannot recommend it enough.
And I love the cover too. I think that's one of the staples for me
Right.
with the cozy mystery is,
Mhm.
you know, bakery shop aside, like you want to the cover is kind of what draws you in, right? And
Mhm.
it's lovely.
Yes, like this sort of country estate, right,
Yeah.
with the two
Yeah.
women. Yeah,
And framed with
absolutely.
the trees. It's just really
Yeah.
nice. It's really
Yes.
nice.
Hmm.
Okay, so next, I think you and I both have a love for vintage books and writers from a bygone era. So it's I know can be difficult to choose like one or one author to share, but I thought maybe sharing a vintage author or series that you love and that really does epitomize coziness for you.
Absolutely. So my pick for this sort of vintage category is Thorny Hold by Mary Stewart. I adore Mary Stewart's writing. I've read everything that she has written, every single thing.
Wow.
I got into her because she wrote a series about Merlin and King Arthur, and I went through a huge King Arthur reading phase in my early 20s. And then that led me down the path of discovering she has a lot of what I call romantic suspense novels. And Thorny Hold is a little bit of an outlier from that. I mean, there is some of that romantic suspense elements to it, but this one is set in England and it's almost got a little bit of what we would today call magical realism to it, but very mild, very mild. In this we follow Gilly Ramsey and she comes to Thorny Hold, which she's inherited, I believe, from her godmother. And so she sort of settles in to this cottage, and it's just, I mean, there's so many cozy elements where they talk about her like cleaning out the cottage and getting it sort of, set up and livable because nobody's been living in it for a while. And about her meeting, there's like a caretaker woman who's maybe a bit, something's going on there. You don't quite trust her. And then, of course, there is a gentleman who comes into the picture, and she just writes such captivating stories. And I always feel completely swept away in her novels. And this one, I think, is one of her cozier reads. Like her romantic suspense kind of can be, a little bit like, oh gosh, you're turning the pages because you can't wait to see what happens next. And this one is just a little bit gentler than those.
So I've read a couple of Mary Stewart's middle grade books. I just finished A Walk in the Woods,
Mm-hmm.
which I loved. And then I have the Merlin one just right over there
Yep.
that I found the omnibus
Oh, really?
hardcover on eBay. And I'm so excited. I think I'm gonna
Yes.
dive into that this summer. So I have not read Thorny Hold and will absolutely add that to
Yeah.
my Mary Stewart TBR list.
Yes. It's a great one.
Great, great. Okay. Okay, so next we have middle grade. Um, I know there's the quote that C.S. Lewis has about how, a book is should be good no matter what age. I'm changing the quote,
Mhm.
but it doesn't necessarily have to be middle grade, but
Mhm.
that's what it's marketed, juvenile fiction. And so um, that also has a lot of coziness potential. And so just wondering what your favorite kind of middle grade cozy novel is.
Well, this is like so hard to nail down because there are so many wonderful middle grade books that I think would be considered cozy and that I absolutely adore. But this one, first off, this is a classic, and it's one I can't believe I just read back for this past middle grade March. And I wish I'd read it as a child because I would have absolutely loved it. And that is Heidi by Joanna Spyri. I love this edition. It's so
Yeah, it's
beautiful,
beautiful. It is
isn't it?
beautiful.
And I listened to this on audio, which was actually a wonderful way to read it and experience the story. But then I had to have my own copy because I just completely fell in love with Heidi. And Heidi is she's an orphan. She lives with her sister, one of her older sisters, and the older sister doesn't want to take care of her anymore. And so she basically sends her to live with her grandfather in the Swiss Alps, and the grandfather's sort of a curmudgeon and a bit of a hermit, and he doesn't really want her there, but he takes her in anyway. And then there's a series of a number of different events that happen where Heidi then goes to live with another family, and then so she's sort of being shuttled around, but she has such a fantastic spirit.
Mhm.
This book is filled with some of the most wonderful nature descriptions. I mean, I've wanted to visit the Swiss Alps, but now I really want to visit the Swiss Alps after having read this. And I loved it so much. And I was talking about it on Instagram, and one of my friends there was like, let's buddy read it next middle grade March. And I was like, yes, let's. So I loved it so much. I already have plans to read it again next year.
Yeah.
And I just think this is such a cozy, fantastic, classic children's book. And yeah, it's the perfect sweet spot for me of a cozy read.
Great. And I love it too. When you think about cozy, like I think about her getting her little straw bed set up,
Mhm.
that he sets up for
Yes.
her. She climbs up and has I think she's
Yep.
a little window to look out.
She
It
can
is,
see the sky.
yeah,
Mhm.
it is
I
very,
know.
very cozy and wholesome.
Absolutely. And going with the shepherd up the mountain with the goats and everything. Oh, just
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Just fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
Very cozy. I would agree.
yes.
Okay. So for the last category, I would choose modern. So this would be like kind of a lit fic pick.
Mhm.
Um, but also make it cozy. So just wondering what
Yeah.
your choice for that is.
So my choice is, I don't know, maybe not the most. Let me see when was this published? Because my
Oh
idea
yeah,
of
it might
modern
not
and
be
maybe
modern.
everybody else's idea is not the same thing.
Right.
Let's see.
But
This was first published in 1995. So
hey,
definitely
listen,
modern for me.
me too. Me too. Right. Yeah, I mean, I would say you're talking about things in in the 70s. Like that's pushing it, I think, for being modern.
Right.
But I think anything that's 90s and beyond.
Okay. Then this certainly qualifies.
Yes.
And that book is Coming Home by Rosamund Pilcher. And I am a huge Rosamund Pilcher fan. I absolutely love her. I've read all of her big, chunky books, of which this is definitely one. And I feel like this is the last of her big, chunky books that I read. And while I loved them all, it's a toss up between Coming Home and The Shell Seekers as to which of those two is my absolute favorite. And I go back and forth all the time. I can't decide. But I really love Coming Home. And one of the reasons for that is because Judith Dunbar, who is our main character in this, is just I mean, like I want to be best friends with Judith. She is such a lovely person, and you follow her story. This takes place, it's from like 1935, and it goes kind of through World War II, and you just sort of follow what happens to Judith, and she is kind of left behind at her boarding school. Her family goes off to Singapore without her, and they leave her in England, and she makes friends with this girl who comes from a wealthy family, and they sort of take her in under their wing, and so she's sort of sheltered by them, and she spends a lot of time at their home with the family. And it's just, I mean, it really is just a slice of life, of Judith's life, and what happens to her in her sort of coming of age period, which I love coming of age novels. And this one, she's a little bit older, she's like in her late teens into her early 20s and maybe mid 20s, but she has that arc of sort of discovering who she is and where her life is going to go and what she wants out of life. And oh, it's just the best possible escapist kind of just immerse yourself in this wonderful world. And Rosamund Pilcher's descriptions of the English countryside and of Cornwall, I mean, they really, other than like Daphne du Maurier, she just can't be beat for that. So now that we have shared some of our favorite cozy reads and hopefully helped you to understand what we consider to be cozy reads and the types of books that we might choose for the book club. But the book club isn't just the two of us, it is all of our members. And we really value everybody's input. And we think it's important to choose books for a wide level of interest. And so to do that, we are going to periodically send out a Google form. We have already done it when we set up the book club, and we will be doing it again very shortly, to ask members to give us recommendations for books that they would like to read for the club. And we keep a running list of all of those. And then we choose books based on all of the members' input, which I think is really important that it's not just our club. The club is for everybody, and we want everybody to feel like they have a voice in the club as well.
Mhm. Right. So we meet every third Saturday of the month. And, once we get someone's email information, we make sure that we're sending in advance the Google Meet link. We find that Google Meet is the best way for everyone to be able to access it easily. And so we send out that link. And we really try to keep this as Jen said, this is not just our book club. This is whoever wants to join and be a part of it, it's their book club. So not only are we about getting input from everyone in the club, but also really wanting to make sure that if we're spending our time reading cozy books, we're also making the actual virtual book club experience cozy as well. And so that means really trying to meet everybody where they are and making sure everybody's comfortable. So, we would really want anyone to join who, whether you've read the book or not, maybe you haven't finished it and you're okay with hearing spoilers and you want to hear, be part of the discussion. Maybe you don't want to be a part of the discussion, but you just want to listen to what people say. And so you really want to keep your camera off, or maybe you're traveling and you can only put your comments in the chat and you're not able to talk. We just really want this to be a discussion format, and kind of keep it low key. We don't call on people to talk. If you're not comfortable, you don't have to. If have questions about it, we would welcome that. I know I often have questions that I like to ask to try to see, did I understand that correctly? Was my take on that the what everybody else's was? And so just really keeping it comfy, cozy, not only in the book choices, but also in just the whole experience. Low key, no pressure, just kind of fun, 1 hour a month, getting together and sharing about a book that we've read together.
Yes, absolutely. I think, we want everybody to feel welcome and comfortable in however they want to participate in the group. So, and if you can't, if you can only come once or twice a year, come once or twice a year. That is absolutely fine. You don't have to make it to every month. Like you said, this should be a book club that you make it what works best for you. So,
Right. And also, we don't record it or post it anywhere. It's just, again, just that 1 hour. And some of the people that are in the club will say like, "Oh, I really want to join, but I have a conflict." And so, people I think do, if they're not able to make it, they miss it, especially if you've put in the time for the book. And so we just we want to be here also as a community,
mhm.
to just kind of, share life together a little bit too. So anyway, we wanted to share a little bit about our choices that we have for the remainder of the year. Um, and we can share a little bit more about, we've made one little slight alteration, so we'll get into that. So make sure you stay tuned for that. So our June read, which you should be seeing this video in advance of that, is Hannah Coulter by Wendell Berry. Is it backwards for you?
Nope. It is correct. It is the correct way for me.
Interesting. Okay. So this book is a very quiet book. Something that I love about Wendell Berry is that as a male, he has written this book from a female perspective. Um, I know one of the things that I love the most about this is that we are meeting Hannah near the end of her life. And it feels very much like a memoir. She's kind of turning around and looking behind her of what has brought her to that point. And she shares with us, the reader, what her life has been like and how she's ended up being in this situation. And for me, one of the things that makes it cozy is we start out at the beginning knowing that we're at the end of her life, knowing who she was married to and kind of some of the things she's gone through in her life, and then she starts into her childhood. And so in some ways we kind of get some spoilers at the beginning, but for me, that's what makes it feel cozy, is that there's not this angst of like, oh, what's gonna happen
Hmm.
here at the beginning. I already know that there are things that are going to happen to Hannah, and that she's come to peace with them. And so that's one of the reasons why I would consider this cozy. But I love Berry's writing, and again, think it's a very quiet book. There's not like this huge plot driving you to turn the
Hmm.
page. It's very much about Hannah and her sharing her perspective and her life, and feels very historical fiction-esque. I would say. Um,
Hmm.
so that's June's book, which again, third Saturday in June will be when we'll be
Hmm.
discussing this.
Yes.
So I'll go
I'm
ahead.
very excited. I haven't read it yet, and I'm going to start it today, actually. So
Yeah, I'm halfway through,
nice.
but it's a reread for me. So,
Right. But
but it,
it's not a huge book either. So
no,
I mean,
it's
yeah,
not. It's not.
it's fairly slim. Mhm.
Um, so knowing that you haven't read it, hopefully I haven't given away too much.
No,
Um,
that's great.
So, and then for July, we have Susanna Kearsley's The Firebird. If you haven't read Susanna Kearsley, she is a dual timeline, multiple point of view writer who has characters in the present, and then the best part, I think, is the historical fiction pieces where we kind of see that second point of view, and it's in another time period in history. It's a thick book, but I have found her books to be pretty fast and fairly easy to read and get through. I don't think you really get bogged down because there is this plot that's driving you along. Um,
Hmm.
Many of her books revolve around the Jacobite uprising, I think is the right word for it. So based in Scotland and so I think this one does as well. I do think there is a Russian history component to this also. This is the second book in a series, but you don't need to read the first book in order to read this one. So this is one where the order isn't, at least for the first two, is not important. So um, I have not read this one. I have read a few of Susanna Kearsley's. I know you have as well, Jen.
Yes.
So
Hmm.
I think it looks like a perfect hot July book from the cover. So we'll see.
Yes. Firebird sounds good for July, right?
Yes, right, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. I also haven't read that one, but I have read some other Susanna Kearsley's. So,
Yeah. So,
mhm.
okay,
Yes.
great. So we can
Okay.
move into the next one.
All right. So then for August, this book we were actually going to read over August and September, but we have rethought things because this book is one that I think, even though it's got a fairly hefty page count, it reads very quickly. And I personally know this is going to be a reread for me, and I'm going to have a hard time putting it down. So that book is The Shell Seekers by Rosamund Pilcher.
I'll hold up mine
And
too.
yes. So she's got that beautiful. I have that same edition, but in a very small paperback, and my old eyes need this bigger size to
Yeah.
read now. But in the Shell Seekers, this is another family saga. And interestingly enough, I think similar to Hannah Coulter, we are starting with a woman towards the end of her life looking back and reflecting on her life sort of from the beginning to where she is now. So we follow Penelope Keeling and her father. She has a painting of her father's. He was a famous artist, and he has this painting called The Shell Seekers, which she owns. And come to find out that his painting is actually now worth a lot of money, and her children come in and they each have their own ideas of what Penelope should do with this painting. And as a result of sort of this kind of conflict going on at the end of her life, it causes her to reflect back over the course of her entire life. So you get to see this. It's set in Cornwall, where many of Rosamund Pilcher's novels are set. And I think it is the perfect immersive summer read, perfect for August. And I'm so excited. It's been quite a few years since I read this, and I cannot wait to get back into it. So this is going to be for August. So we will be discussing this in on the third Saturday of August. And then for September, we are actually going to send out a poll to all of the members later this month. So if you want to join the club, please do so. And then you can partake of that poll and help us choose which book we are going to read for September, since we don't currently have a book picked for that. And we'll also be asking for some input for books to read for next year as well.
And also to jump in, since
Sure.
Fire Bird and Shell Seekers are pretty thick. We've said
Yes.
September's book um will be a thinner read, I think.
Yes.
So
We'll have some sort of little kind of, I don't want to say palate cleanser, but just something a little bit shorter that's,
right.
doesn't feel like such a chunky, because October's book is also a bit chunky. And that is The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. There we go. So
Your
we're going to
cover is
this is sort of,
beautiful.
yeah, we're going to sort of piggyback on, because Victober happens in October, and this is a Victorian novel. So if you want to participate in Victober, you can do that along with us, and we can all discuss it. So, The Woman in White, I think, is considered to be one of the first detective novels. I think The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins might be actually the first detective novel, or what is considered to be the first. And in this, we follow this young man, and he, I think, what's his name? Walter Hartwright. And he comes across this woman in white. She seems to be somewhat in distress. He's on the road and comes across her, and then they sort of have an interaction. And then he comes to find out that there's a woman missing from a nearby asylum. And is it the woman in white? Is it somebody else? And he is on his way to, I think he's going to be teaching some, older children who live in a nearby, manor house. And anyway, the story progresses from there, and he sort of gets involved in finding this woman, or something like that. I don't know, because I haven't read it, and I've wanted to read this for so long.
Me
So
too.
I'm really looking forward to this one.
And I love too the humor that Wilkie Collins has because in the Moonstone, you've read
Mhm.
the Moonstone. Have you read the
No,
Moonstone?
I haven't read the only Wilkie Collins I've read is No Name, which I really enjoyed. So yeah,
I just think he's funny. Like
he is.
there's humor in this that I'm hoping he also has in here. Because when I was
Mhm.
reading the Moonstone, it was like just it almost, it's like Three Stooges kind of basement of thing. It's just he's just is very clever and funny. And
Right.
I've also wanted to read this, and so I'm happy that we're gonna
Yes,
get to it. And we have accountability for getting
we
through
do. We do. So that will be a fun October read.
it. Hmm.
And then for November, we are going to sort of keep with the sort of mystery novel theme we have going at the end of this year. And we are going to read They Found Him Dead by Georgette Hare. Hey, we have
You're
the
the
same
same
edition.
copy. Finally.
I love these. I love these
Yeah,
editions.
me
I found this
too.
at a secondhand bookstore near me. So
Me too. Me too.
this was such a good find. I love Georgette Hare. She is most well known for her Regency romances,
Hmm.
but she also wrote quite a few detective novels. Some are part of a series, which this one is. This is part of the, who are they? Does it say on here? Of course not. Oh, Hannah, and there is one other. I can't think of his name. Anyway, so Superintendent Hannah, I think, is our main detective in this novel. I don't think you need to read the series in any particular order. I've read a couple of them, and they really stand alone as sort of like Agatha Christie. And if you like Agatha Christie and that sort of classic British crime novel, then Georgette Hare definitely falls into that category. And in this one, we follow, it's the morning after wealthy Silas Kane's 60th birthday party. And it brings to light this party a number of controversies in the family. And then Kane is found dead at the foot of the cliff. They think it's an accident at first, but then his nephew and heir is also found dead. And then potentially the life of a third heir to this family fortune is also has his life in danger. So clearly somebody needs to come in and find out what's going on here. So sounds fantastic. And I love a good classic British crime novel, which I think tend to be on the cozier side for mystery novels. There's nothing ever really graphic about them. Um, they may not be like what we would consider traditionally cozy, but I think they still fall into that cozy category.
I agree. I've read some of her, at least one of her Regency romances, and
Mhm.
just really enjoy the creativity that she
Mhm.
has in kind of developing, you know, what's going on. And
Mhm.
so I'm excited to read her
Yeah.
mystery. And I agree on the coziness level of it, the British ones. Usually it's
Mhm.
we're not looking at like thriller, horror, on
No,
page, graphic, anything.
right.
And I think a murder mystery is a great November
Yes,
read.
absolutely.
So I like
Absolutely.
reading seasonally, and this is a
Hmm.
perfect season choice.
Yes, for sure. Curl up with your favorite hot beverage and dive into a mystery novel in November.
Right, right.
Hmm.
So we don't have a choice for December. So that will be part of that Google form poll that Jen has mentioned that we'll be sending out so
Hmm.
that we can get input on choosing December's book and then moving into horrors 2025.
Oh my gosh.
I know. It's
I can't even believe it's June of 2024. So
I know. Yeah. There's that saying, the days are long and the years are short. And
they
it is
are.
true.
It's
Very,
so
very
true. So, so true. So I think really the only last thing that we need to do is to let you all know how you can join the Cozy Reader Book Club. And there are a few different ways you can do that. First of all, you can leave a comment on this video. You can also send an email to Rebecca or myself and let us know that you would like to join, and we will leave our information in the description box below. You can also head over to both of our Instagram accounts. And again, we will have those listed in the description box. And we do have a pinned post about the Cozy Reader Book Club, which we will need to update, and we will be doing that very soon. But you can always send us a DM through Instagram as well. So many ways to get a hold of us and let us know that you are interested. And we would love for you to join us. The more the merrier. And we
good.
love people who love to talk about books.
You guys, thanks so much for watching. I really do hope that you'll consider joining our little book club and becoming part of our community where we have a shared love for coziness and gentleness and having a safe place to be able to talk about the books that we're reading. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time.